Mr. Greg DeSimone.
Hey Dom, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Good to see you. Good to actually have you back on the podcast. You've been a guest of mine before here.
I have.
Yeah.
Surprised you keep having me back. I keep trying to embarrass you, but it's not working.
It's not working. It's not working. No, I embarrass myself enough, Greg, and I think you're probably in that same camp.
Yeah, I do enough damage to myself that I don't have to worry about anyone else.
Yeah. Let me put a warning out there to everybody listening. Greg and I like to joke back and forth, but Greg, if I can say this in French, you're as serious as shit when it comes to selling businesses and helping people get through that tangled barbed wire fence of making it happen and getting a deal over the line.
Yes, so like this, the humor is basically a stress management mechanism because it does get stressful. But if you take yourself too seriously, you can drive yourself crazy.
Yeah. I think the last deal you and I talked about back and forth, I don't think this gives away any confidences, but just to give people perspective on how complicated and large these deals get is you had a solar distribution company, and I had a solar distribution company who might have been a buyer, and that was our last email exchange on that. What was the high level nature of that deal without giving anything away?
It was the owners were getting interest from buyers, and the owners were also interested in other businesses. They were both starting up other businesses, and they were getting less and less attention on the business they had, but it was kept growing. And so they decided that they should probably evaluate if the right offer came in place, selling it versus bringing in a second level of management that they would pull themselves out and let another management team run it for them. And then we're still in that process.
Are you? Okay, good,
yeah.
good. My guy never came through though, although he in his own right is a large distributor of solar products all the way through to the batteries and the connecting systems and the racking.
Yes. No, we did have a good conversation with them. It wasn't a good fit for them at this moment.
Yeah.
It wasn't a bad fit at the moment. It wasn't a good fit for what they had going on.
Yeah, well, and they are busy there. Well, let's do this, Greg, because people are either very interested or very confused right now. So let me start with my opening question. Greg DeSimone, who the heck are you? And how is it that you come to be speaking to this group of construction professionals, business owners all around the world?
Well, I'm speaking because I'm friends with you and you trust my knowledge. But what I do, and I think why you're reaching out to me is I started as a CPA in corporate. And when I was in corporate, I worked on, for about 15 years, I worked on 15 different transactions. When I left corporate, I started a consulting coaching program, and it focused on exit and succession. So I help businesses either move their ownership from one generation to the next. And if the next generation wasn't ready or wasn't interested, prepare them for sale. As I got further in the path, I realized more and more companies actually wanted to sell to a third party. And to be blunt, it's a good living if you can manage those prospects. And it's interesting because everything's a different project and it's different issues in each deal. So I kind of merged my coaching practice, consulting practice into an M&A firm to kind of bridge that gap and actually do the transactional work.
M&A, what is M&A?
M&A is mergers and acquisition. Even simpler, it's I don't want to own this business anymore and I want to get paid for it, so I'm going to sell it to someone else who wants it. So you're selling your business. So what we do is we represent primarily sellers or owners of business who want to sell and find a new buyer.
Yeah. I'm in the process now, and you and I have talked lightly about this. There's a family business that I'm working with, wonderful family, but it's time. It's time, the dad is much older. When the kids are 50, do you really call them kids anymore?
No. Well, you do, but no, they're not.
They're not the kids, but it's just a reference point, right? But I think that they felt that this would be an easy transaction, and they're not going through a broker against my advice. And I'm not a broker. I'm not a Greg DeSimone. I help people get their business ready to be sold.
Right.
But I think they are constantly coming up against deal breaker conversations because they thought it was going to be easy. And I've tried my best to show them that this is going to be a difficult path, but they keep coming up where we're on the phone a lot, but they keep coming up with, oh my God, I think it's over. Oh my God, I think it's over. And we're having to save it at the last minute, but at every step.
Right.
How easy is it to sell a business and make sure both sides are protected? Is it an easy two-step process, or is it a nuanced
It's
long.
nuanced. It is so nuanced. And that's what makes it interesting for me, is that I don't know what the right answer is going in. I know what the process is going to be. I know how we're going to go through. So I have a foundation. I know the steps we're going to take.
Yeah.
I can anticipate most of the issues. But there are always going to be something that's important to the seller that's not important to the buyer, and vice versa, and trying to figure out how to get those things matched up. The part that gets in the way is ego and emotion. When you're selling your business and your family business, there's a lot of pride, and you should have pride. You grew a business that's worth something that someone's willing to pay you for. Sometimes the ego is, I think this thing's worth 20 million, and the other side says, I think it's worth 10. And the other side, and just to take all the emotion of it, the other side's not going to pay you for how hard it was for you and how many weekends you gave up and how many soccer games and hockey games and whatever it is you missed to get there. Yeah. They're paying you for what it can do for them going forward. They're making an investment decision. It's not emotional.
Right.
And sometimes as a seller, it's hard to pull yourself out of that. The other part is like worrying about what's going to happen to the people that are left behind. And there's a lot
of staff, the management, maybe some of your
family
family who wants
to still
still
work.
It
could be they become like family, because even if they're not, there's a lot of like angst over like what's going to happen. I want them to be taken care of. And then it's the crossroads become, you want to take care of them for past performance. The new side in loyalty, the new side says, I want to incent for future performance to make sure I can get to the next level. And there's the gap. There's like, I think Dom, you were my general manager for like the last 10 years. I want to make sure he gets paid out. I want to give him $1 million out of the 10. The other side says, well, I don't want to give Dom $1 million. Like if I give him $1 million, what's the incentive for him to stay and help keep running it? I need him.
Right.
So I don't
by the way, I'm open to that conversation. I'd be willing to.
Yes. So,
but yeah, it doesn't. You're right. There's no incentive. It's
right. So you want to pay for loyalty. They want to pay for future performance and growth, and those things get problematic. And so there's all kinds of things that come up, and it could be, how much do you want to pay me to stay on for 2 years? How long do you want me to stay on for 2 years? Do you want me to stay on for 5 years? Do you want me to stay on for nothing and just go away? Do I just have to be available? I know my kid's not ready to be the VP of sales, but that's what I want. I want you to take him on as the VP of sales, even though I'm selling it. There's all these types of things. And I use the example of why you don't want to do this on your own is these are emotional, and you don't want to be emotional. You want to be able to logically look at what the issue is, what's the right thing for you, and be able to think about it without being in the heat of the moment. And I use the example of, if you have a spouse or significant other, or even good friends or kids, like, have you ever been in a fight or an argument or dispute? In the middle of it, you're like just flustered. You can't say the right thing, or you say the wrong thing that's going to take a while to unwind because you were angry and you said something you shouldn't have said. Well, that happens when you're selling businesses too, if you're face to face. But if you have an advisor or a broker or an intermediary, we hear the issue. We'll tell you, you get annoyed, you get pissed, and you tell us the thing you shouldn't have said face to face. And we're like, okay, I understand your feelings. Here's why they're saying it. Here's why this is important to you. What do you need? Now let's come back with the best response.
Right. Instead of the emotional.
Right. So like you have that, or the other thing I think about is like, you have a good argument and you don't think of it in the heat of the moment because you're flustered.
I do that all the time. I end up the next day when I'm shaving.
I should have said this.
That's right. Yeah.
You will never not be in a position where you didn't say the right thing, because we're not going to respond in real time. We're going to get the information, and we're going to get our answer and respond with the best answer every single time.
Right.
And that way, even if we think you're going to say something to piss the other side off, that's a technical term. We make sure we position it so that they don't get annoyed, they don't get mad, they don't get angry, they don't take it the wrong way.
You give it context.
Sure they say something that you're going to get mad at. We don't tell them exactly what they say. Like, we position what they're trying to get out of that conversation so that we're sticking to issues and moving it forward versus.
So interesting. Yeah, it really is. And I say this quite often about sales in general, but it applies here when you're selling or buying a business, is that it's really like a game of chess.
Yep.
There are moves that need to be made. There's paths you can take that are going to kill the deal.
Right.
And you have to see 6-7 steps ahead, and also understand there's so many variables. there are just so many variables.
If you've never done it before, it's difficult. Like we will say something in a negotiation, knowing that it's either going to be accepted or it's going to be counted. And here's the different counters, and figuring if we counter this way, how's it going to play out? What are all the different options?
Yeah.
And where are we comfortable, and where do we have to direct you away from and towards? So yeah, it is like a chess match. Like you don't win chess by seeing what the next move is. You win chess by seeing what the next 10 moves are.
Yeah.
And it can be frustrating for us at times because I will lose sleep over, okay, here's the options, and I'm playing it in my head like, okay, if they say this, we got to say that. If they say this, we got to say that. And it's difficult. But it's, again, that's what makes it fun and challenging. And the thing with a lot of business owners don't understand is like, well, I have an offer, so I'll just do it myself.
That's the situation I'm in with this client. And
Like what value are you going to add? And I'm like, and we're like, okay, well, the deal dies, you don't have a deal. Two is, I'll use an example. This solar panel company, our initial valuation based on market data, I'm going to pick different numbers just so we don't give anything away. Say it was $10 million. When we got the initial offers to be able to go from stage 1 to stage 2, where you get to actually meet management and talk to them and actually come up with a formal offer, they got an offer for $14 million. When we got the final offer, it was $17 million.
Why? So that's a nice story. Why does it continue to increase? Usually it goes the other way, Greg.
Because we know what we're doing. But two is, if you have a number, like, in this case, the owner would have said, okay, I think my business is worth 10. I got an offer for 14 million. It ends there. I'm like, I got 4 million more than I thought.
I see.
And we're saying, well, there's more stuff that you can ask for. And you can't ask for 28, but you can get to 17. And one of the things that we have experienced, and a lot of the advisors will have experiences, like we know what the pressure points are. Sometimes it's, I can only pay a certain multiple, but I'll give you equity, or I will give you, I'll give you more in rent, or I'll buy your real estate above market because I can get approval for that, but I can't get approval to buy your business.
I see. Right.
So you got
how the math gets split. Yeah.
Yes. It's so you figure out where I call it negotiation arbitrage. Like they care about, they can get approval and care about certain things. You care about certain things, but ultimately it's the big number. And if you figure out what like, we had one that was a lighting company. They did lighting for, so you might see Bruce Springsteen goes around country touring. He has 3 or 4 trucks. He has his own personal corporation that is, each tour is its own technically company, and they own all the equipment.
Wow, I didn't know that.
But the smaller companies, the smaller tours, like say, I'm trying to think of a small name, like.
Well, that's why they're a small name, Greg. We can't think of it.
But
a one-hit wonder. A one-hit wonder.
They're not stadium tours. They're doing the smaller, the 2000s arenas and theaters. They don't have their own light show, and they don't have all that company. You have to rent it every city you go to. Yeah. And this company does that. When we found out when we were selling them, we asked for, there was a valuation gap for what our client wanted and what they were willing to pay. The client, the buyer said, well, gave a number. We said, well, how about we do an earn out for another $1 million to bridge the gap? If we do X, Y, and Z, you pay the $1 million. If we don't do that, you pay the money, the amount that you want, and we're all happy.
Right.
And so there's some skin in game for both sides. They said, no, we can't do an earn out. But what we will do is a incentive bonus. And I go, based on revenue. I'm like, well, that's an earn out. And they said, no, we will do an incentive bonus. And what we found out was
their board of
had to
directors
stick to 4.2x of earnings to get approval for the purchase.
Right.
But but an incentive bonus became an operating expense. They had unlimited discretion on operating. And that's what we found out is like, oh, so then they said, we don't want to buy your building. But I said, well, we started to ask for above market rent. So we closed the gap for the extra $1 million by getting additional rent and getting additional incentive bonus, because that was operating expenses, because they could say, the management team could say yes to that, but they had to go ask their private equity firm for approval to go above 4.2. So we figured out where their stopping point was, and then asked for everything else around that stopping point. And that's the thing, is if you don't do these deals, you don't understand that. You think a number's a number, and it's really about thinking about the structure and where the give and take is, what the different tax implications are, so that if you move a million here might need to be 1.2 million somewhere else because of tax implications. But knowing that is in figuring out where the pressure points are. That's why I think this job is interesting and fun. Is like there's no simple answer.
It's never the same twice.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
So that's not in the trade space, but it's the same issue comes up in every single business.
Well, the reason it's funny you say it. So, by the way, great story and a great example where the language that we would all understand, earn out, isn't what the other company wants to buy because they can't get approval for it. So that's where the value of somebody like you comes in, and then that just nudges the actual selling price up.
Right.
The thing that I remember when I get your emails where you talk about all the transactions you've done and Beacon, your Beacon Equity Advisors, you sent a whole list of transactions that you've done in a whole summary, and there was a number of trade companies in there, like a large diameter pipe company or venting company. It's a really strange, weird, interesting. I don't want to offend anybody. Things I wouldn't have expected to be a company, and I do this for a living. Tell me about some of those transactions you've done with confidentiality, of course, front and center, but with an eye to helping my audience understand how they can get to the point where their business can be bought. Not that it can be sold, but where somebody wants to buy it.
Right. And that's, I think, what triggered this conversation is you had a post about one of your clients, I think, position the company to be bought.
Right.
Versus preparing for a sale.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's the same. It's not. Making your company buyable is different than preparing for an exit, getting ready to get out.
Yeah.
Because preparing to buy means, like we said earlier, the other side is not paying for emotion. They're not paying for all the stuff that you've done. They're looking at it like, this is an asset, and this is what I think I can generate it with it as is. This is what I think I can generate if I make improvements. I can pay X amount and get a 10%, 20%, 30%, 40% return, whatever they decide their return criteria is.
Yeah.
And everyone has different limits. In order to entice the buyer to want it, you have to show them that your business will generate the return that they want, and it may generate more if they're willing to put a little bit more into it. And there's a fine line there. You don't get paid for what they have to do. But like if they have to say, oh, if you just hire a new VP of sales and go into the Midwest, yeah, you can double your income. Like, well, all right, but I got to do all that. Oh. But if you have said, hey, we've already started, we've hired an infrastructure to service the Midwest. We're in our second year. It's probably a 3-year plan for us to execute and get to our plan. But we've already put the infrastructure in place. We got the distribution center, we got the sales team, and we got the service personnel and a hiring plan ready to go that we're already acting on it. We're just year 1 of 3. You can get paid for some of that because you've built the infrastructure and the foundation to go versus, hey, here's all your opportunity, go do it.
Go from scratch, yeah, because that's all airware. Right. So that you again, this makes it viable. I've got a simple system for expanding to the Midwest, or for that matter, if it's a smaller contractor, we got a simple system for expanding to the south side of town because we already own the north side of town, whatever it might be. Yeah. The
other part is to make it viable, and every deal that we've had that gets premium dollars.
Premium, Greg. Sorry, can you explain premium dollars to my listeners? And I'm saying that to be funny, but
every industry has a reasonable range of value.
Yeah.
Like a roofer might be, depending on size, a roofing contractor, siding contractor might be in the 4 times earnings. So
4 times earnings, not revenues, folks. 4 times earnings. Yeah.
4 times earnings. No one cares about revenue if it doesn't turn into profit.
That's right.
I'll make one exception. It doesn't apply to any of you guys. If you have a software company and your customers have to pay a recurring subscription, and the only way to get out is they decide 3 years from now, like, why am I paying for this subscription? Those people get money off of revenue, and they get much, much higher multiples.
Yeah, Greg, we talk about recurring revenue on this show a lot, and it's one of the challenges in the construction business. For most of the verticals in construction do not have a recurring revenue model. Some do. We'll leave that for another topic.
Yeah. Some of the trades you can put a recurring component to it, and that does make you more valuable than someone who starts from zero every day and is hoping someone calls them to do a project.
Yeah.
So one of the key things though is can the business run without you? And it's setting up so that not every decision goes through the owner. And it's not just, and I have two companies I'm working with. One actually has the infrastructure in place where the owner doesn't make any of the decisions. They actually have strategic updates, and he reviews the decisions and he reviews past decisions, but he's not approving future decisions unless it's over X amount.
Sure.
So the management team is making decisions. When that management team is talking to the new buyer, they're actually having conversations like, well, we did this and I had this decision and here's why I did this. I have another company that is the very similar size. They're both in the $25 million range. This other company is just as profitable and just as much revenue. They're within like 5% either way. They're struggling getting the buyer to buy into this because even though they've said they're stepped out, when we talk to their management team, well, I'm going to pick a random name here. I'll pick your name. Well, yeah, that you'll have to ask Dom about that. Or yeah, I do this, and then Dom will approve it. And even we said Dom's really working on another business right now, and literally he's working on another business, and he's only spending 5 hours a week on the business we're selling. So he literally has got an infrastructure in place, but he's got the mindset where it's still Dad, can I?
Yeah.
Versus, hey, I've really given you the authority, and we'll review authority, and we'll determine what decisions have to have approval. Because if you're training, I hate making little kid examples, but I'll let my daughter fail if I know the only thing's going to happen is she's going to stub her toe or skin her knee. If I think she might break her leg or lose a finger, I'm going to time out. We're not making that decision. I'll let my past experience help you, but I'll let my kid make some mistakes to learn.
Right.
And I'll let my management team make some mistakes if I say, okay, they'll learn, they'll own the process by letting them make mistakes and improve it. But if they're going to make a catastrophic mistake, yeah, I'm going to step in. And the goal is to set up your infrastructure so that
simple
catastrophic issues, you have a process like, hey, we're going to decide on these things because it's a big capital decision and it's a big risk.
Right.
Or we're going to make hiring decisions to go into a new market. And that's a big risk to commit to those costs. So those type of decisions, yeah, we'll talk about as a team and make strategic decisions, but day-to-day operations, you got to make these decisions. If you screw a few of them up, great. Tell me what's happened when we talk about it. Tell me what happened, why it happened, and what you're doing to make sure it doesn't happen again. And that's the most important part, is if you can let someone make the mistake, figure out why they made the mistake, and then tell you, here's my plan to improve so that we don't see this again. Then you have a good management team, because the market's changing. Like what we do today to serve our clients is not going to be.
You mean us as a tradesperson? Us as a tradesperson, or you as a business broker? Oh, okay.
Anybody, any business, what you need to do to serve your client today may not be what you need to do to serve your client tomorrow. You may have different types of competition. For example, like the lumberyards didn't think they'd have to deal with a Home Depot 20 years ago. Guess what? Everyone thought the lumberyards would go to stink. The lumberyards are doing great.
Yeah.
But they had to change their model. They had to go to a pro model versus a DIY model because Home Depot took the DIY.
Yeah.
Same thing happens all the time. Like you have to change your model and change the way you look at it. And if you're the only one that can make those decisions, your growth is capped to the European.
You're limited. That's when we talk about the power of delegating. And, as you know, I like talking about simple systems. This is a little bit of a self-serving question, but how important is it to have a dashboard in place? One simple place that you can look at all the key decisions in a company at the snap of a finger.
I think it's massive. The companies that we're selling that you asked the question, which we haven't answered yet, is the companies that are getting premium value have dashboards and they can quickly identify the changes. And when I say premium value, like a company has a range of value. And let's just say it's between 4 and 5 times earnings. And and every industry has different values. There's
big asterisks on that. You can't say what the value is going to be, but generally it's 4x.
That software type company I was mentioning earlier, their revenue, their multiple might be 9 to 11.
Yeah.
The trades might be, depending on size, might be 2 to
1
3,
to 2 to 3,
4 to 6.
Yeah.
And so size and industry and revenue model have a big impact. But every business, once you take an initial look at it, there's a reasonable range what the market's paying for that type of a company with a similar profile. Mm-hmm. Just like when you look at you go to buy a house, I know a center entry colonial with 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. is roughly going to be this. And I might tweak it for a done over basement. I'll tweak it for a garage.
Or a corner lot, or closer to the school, or closer to the highway. Right.
But you generally know what a center entry colonial is in any given town, and you make some adjustments. But my center entry colonial in Mansfield is going to be different than the center entry colonial in Newton, which is just outside the city, which is a premium real estate. Well, I'm halfway between Boston and Providence. So same house, mine's not worth as much. So the same things happen with businesses. But there's a reasonable value. Now you figure out, how do I get the most value?
Right.
With a business, I call it the Holy Trinity. Are you growing with a recurring model? Do you have a management team that has the authority, responsibility, and accountability to make decisions and move the business forward? And the third one is processes. If the owner goes away or someone quits, it's plug and play. Just put someone else in, next man up takes over the role.
Right.
We have a program called Potholes. It's in a book that's on our website called Think Like a Buyer. There's like 43 different things that are value drivers or things that become risky for a business owner. But I will tell you, if you handle those three, which I call the Holy Trinity, they heal and cover up a lot of other issues. If you can get those three, the other ones become less important. If you have those three screwed up or missing, you got to nail down the other 40 risk factors. So if you want to just take it, and I say it's quick and easy, it's only 3, but it's hard to do. If it was easy to do, everyone would do it. But
yeah, it's anything that looks really value, easy is really hard to do.
Right. To get premium value, say, hey, I got to grow a business, and I'm a HVAC, and I have 35% of my business is recurring because I have them all on service contracts, and they pay me annually. So I'm only worried about 66% of my business versus everyone else is 90-10 in that space. So I get a premium because I have a recurring component.
So this is incredible. I think a lot of people are driving or walking their dog right now and thinking, oh boy, this is good stuff, because most people will only ever sell one business in their entire life. You might buy and sell 2 houses.
I would say 99% of the people who sell a business, they only sell one. There are people that sell multiples, but and this is my anecdotally, most people I deal with have only sold a business once, and only sell a business once.
Yeah, because it's a tough thing to do. I've been fortunate in that I've sold 2, 3 kinda, and then, of my own, and then I've seen lots because of what I do, and I'll never see as many as you do because of what you do. But it's every single situation is so incredibly different. But I have recognized that the consistency is keep it simple, make it easy to explain, have really solid people in place. Well, just exactly what you're saying.
Yep.
And have that repeatable cash flow somehow. Get that, we call it recurring revenue, you and I, repeatable cash flow, service contracts, things like that, that people can, because I want to buy that stream of service contracts from you, knowing that I'm going to get those annual contracts again and again, and I can build on it. And that's guaranteed, quote unquote, guaranteed cash flow going forward.
And you get a premium. You get maybe a 1x or a 1.5x
for that
on earnings. So if you have I'm going to make the math easy because I want to keep it simple. You have $1 million of earnings.
Yeah.
If you are starting from scratch every day and say you have to get new construction projects every single day to hit your number, you might get a 3 or 4x. But if you have 30% or 40% or 50% of your business is recurring, you might be asking for 4, 5, or 6x.
That's a big difference. That's a condo near the beach in retirement or a condo on the beach in retirement.
You didn't ask this question, but when we talk about representing,
well, I was about to, Greg, so I'll let you go ahead with it. Thank you for.
the big issue is a lot of people get really good at sales, and like, I'm selling my business, so I know how to sell. I can negotiate, and I'm a really good negotiator. I have to negotiate deals all the time with my customers, with my vendors, and all that. But when you're selling your business is not the same as selling your service. There are completely different issues that I have to deal with. Like, being good at selling a product or a service is way different than selling a business. Doesn't mean you can't do it, but if you're only going to do it once, like I've sold before, and I've sold consulting services, coaching services, I've sold software. My first sale in each one of those things did not get the best deal, because I didn't know what the other side was looking for. You learn as you go.
Right.
Same thing with a business. Could you do it? Yes. But there are certain things that it's selling a business that the other side cares about. And a prime example is a warranty for your product or service is different than a warranty on your business. Like you can't bring your business, the guy that bought your business can't bring it back and say, hey, Dom,
It's not
it's not what I
working.
thought. Here's my receipt. I want my $10 million back. It doesn't work that way.
That works at Costco. You can't do that at.
No, you cannot.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, that's interesting.
And that's why these things are not complicated. And that's why they take like 6 months to 9 months to 12 months, because
Due diligence.
the attorneys
you
have to
have-
figure out what could go wrong. And if it goes wrong, how are we going to resolve it so this thing doesn't blow up?
Right.
But it could be like, you may have to give back all the money if certain things happen. You may have to give back up to $1 million, 10% of the deal, if these things happen. And then the other things you negotiate is, how long am I taking that risk on? Am I taking it on forever? Am I taking that risk on for 3 years? Or am I taking it on for 1 year? And then figuring out which of those risks you're taking.
Yeah.
And it'd be like, a prime example is, did I report all of my income correctly for the last 10 years? So did you,
for those of you who can't see the video, because Greg and I are shooting this for YouTube as well, I did that face where it's like, I just had a conversation with an owner where we went through and we do this thing called a team at risk assessment. Every 6 months, we put the whole roster on a piece of paper and we say, is this person at risk? And, that might mean they're dating somebody in another city and they might move away, or we're not really happy with their performance. And, if it doesn't improve, we might let them go. But you need to know that. Anyways, the employee roster showed up and I was like, there's a lot of people on here with the same last name as you. Yeah. And that's a risk, right? So it's a choice you make as an owner. And I'm happy to, I support that 100%. But the buyer's not going to continue paying that stipend, that the couple of bucks off to family in the future. That's got to be pulled out. That's not earnings anymore.
Right. You know what? That's a great point too. Is sometimes I've worked with a company. It's not in your space. It's a commercial bakery. They pay.
I know bakeries, man. You should I'm good. I'm a product tester for bakeries.
Yeah. And this isn't like the small corner bakery where you go and you sit on a couple of, they're doing $10-15 million a year.
I gotcha. Yeah.
Their two kids, their roles, if you paid them market to run the prepared foods section and the other was running the bake off, the kitchen, putting all the cakes and pastries through the
former and all this. Yeah.
They were both probably should have been paid 125 to 150 to be the managers or senior managers of those
operational managers, right?
They're both with all the perks, groceries paid through a credit card, car payments, salaries, bonuses. We're making 300, 350 a year each.
Right.
So when we said, hey, here's what your business is worth, and the dad wanted to help pay the kids off and say, here, I want to help them out. He goes, I can't make enough money on the sale to make it equal for them to get paid market. And the other part is it was hard to back all these things, add these things back to show the real cash flow, because they did a great job hiding it because they didn't have to pay taxes. So they hid it. And the better you get at hiding it, the harder it is for us to add it back to show here's what your real income is. Because everyone says, just add it back. I'm like, yeah, I can add anything back. But eventually you have to prove that really is a non-business expense and it's not going to recur again.
Yeah.
And the better you are at hiding it, the harder it is to get the ad back. And I will tell you, most people in your industry, the trades industry, are really good at hiding it. It's hard.
I don't know what you're talking about, and nobody on the show understands even what you mean.
Well, yeah, I agree. I'm sure no one here has got checks sitting in there because they had a great year. They have checks sitting in their drawer, and they're not going to deposit them until January because they've already made enough money this year.
Yeah,
I know no one in this call has ever done that.
It would be unheard of.
But I just had a conversation with the one guy who I found who did do that. It's in the trades. He has $1 million of checks in his drawer right now, and that doesn't include anything he's going to deliver in December, and he's depositing them in January. And I said, okay, how much money are you going to save on that? He goes, well, I'll save about 300,000. 30% of $1 million is 300,000 taxes. I'm like, perfect. You want to sell next year? And he goes, yep. I go, what did I tell you your multiple was? And he said 5. I go, multiply 5 times $1 million. And he said 5 million. Like, do you want to save 300,000 this year or get 5 million next April or May?
Oh, you sneaky guy.
I go, I see your point. Right. I go, pay the taxes. It's 300,000. You're going to get 5 million in value. But if you hide it that I can't prove it, I can't ask for it.
Well, I think a lot of us are smiling and nodding right now. Some people might be mad listening to this, but it is true. I mean, somehow those numbers have to show up.
Yes.
And you and I aren't concerned whether we're paying our kids or our wife an inflated wage or
No.
salary. Those things happen, and those are the benefits of missing soccer games and of those things. But at some point, the accounting has to happen, and
Right.
that's where the real value
Well,
will be
the
made.
key too is when you do that, you're deferring. You're not saving taxes. You're taking $1 million this year and you put it next year. So instead of paying the 300,000 this year, you're just going to pay it next year.
Mm.
You're not saving it. You're just moving it from one year to the next. And then when you sell the business, you're just paying it then because you true up all your assets and pay your capital gains and ordinary income, and you never save it. It's just deferring it. So if you want to defer it, work with the financial advisor and the CPA and say, hey, can I put a profit sharing plan in place? Can I put a whole life plan in place where you take those profits and instead of like hiding cash and moving one year to next year, pay yourself into a retirement plan or an insurance policy, a key man policy, where you get the deduction in taxes, but it goes into another account. So you put it in your left pocket and move it to your right pocket and get a deduction that's real. And you create value so that when you go to sell your business, you're not totally reliant on the value of your business. You've been saving money all along. And as a business owner, you have so much impact on being able to do that. The other thing I mentioned about the family is, so that those kids were making 300,000, they should have been making like 125. I have no problem treating your kids better than you would treat an average employee. Actually, that's your right as a business owner. But I would say structure your compensation that everybody, even your kids, get paid market value. Even if your kids aren't the highest paid based on market value, that's fine. Give them a bonus, give them a distribution. So they get a profit sharing distribution as a family member. So they get paid through distributions or through bonuses so that you can easily show, here's what it's really cost to run this business, and here's the family benefit.
So if my son's the foreman or my daughter's the foreman or whatever, or is the estimator, and an estimator's salary in our city is, I'm just going to say 75 grand, just pick a number.
Yeah.
Let's say 100 grand. It's 100 grand. So I pay that person, that child, $100,000. When it shows up on the books, the new buyer can see it and go, okay, well, that's market value for an estimator. And as long as they meet their job requirements, that's good. But then on top of that 100,000, because it's my daughter Susan or my son Sammy, there are other ways that I can compensate them that add up to real value that don't show in the same category on the books.
Correct. That's one of my big things is preparing for your business to be bought or preparing it to be bought. Set compensation at market value for all your family members, for all your friends, and use the distributions or use a different pool of mechanism where to distribute it another way.
Let me do this because we're going to start to wind down here a bit, but this is a really interesting part of the conversation. How long does it take me if I'm listening to this show right now and I'm hearing some of your experience and saying, okay, we don't have those systems in place now. And I think I might want to sell in the future, but I'm even not really committed to that thought. But I should probably start getting ready. How long does it take between knowing I'm not ready and wanting to be ready? How long does it take to change those comp plans, to set things up, to, like there's accounting, and that's a slow beast to move. It's movable, but you can't do it immediately. How long does that take?
I would ideally 3 to 5 years. If you want to sell immediately, there's probably get your current year clean.
Right.
And then we could probably do a recast or reset.
Right.
It's not going to be as effective because there's going to be stuff they'll agree with or not agree with. But if you have 3 to 5 years of clean, like I ran my business true, I got my compensation set up market.
Yeah.
There's less and less issues. You're going to get fair value. You're not going to get dinged. Like when I talked about the offer where we went from 10 to 14 to 17, it's not uncommon for you to get a $14 million offer or whatever offer. And then you go through due diligence, which is basically the other side says, I'm going to look at, you made all these promises. You showed me summary information, but now I'm going to verify.
It's a colonoscopy for your business, Greg, is what it is.
It's a colonoscopy without anesthesia. It hurts. And it's like the IRS coming in, except it's not the IRS, it's just the other buyer. And like, I'm going to look at every single contract. I'm going to look at every single employee file. Yeah. I'm going to look at all the major invoices. I'm going to look at your customer relationships. I'm going to look at all your accounting policies. I'm going to look at your tax returns. I'm going to talk to your CPA and ask them how they did this and why they did this.
Yeah.
They're going to do for 90 days. They're going to just turn over every rock to make sure that they are comfortable that when they write this check, that they're making a good decision.
Yeah.
So if you don't do these things in advance and you make these promises and also you can't prove these adjustments, your 14 million becomes 13, which becomes 12, which becomes 11 because they said, hey, I can't
justify it.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to have to adjust my offer. And that happens more often than you'd think. It happens probably half the time. And it happens a lot to people who aren't represented and who didn't prepare. They just said, hey, I got an offer. I'm ready. I'm just going to go into it versus, hey, I think I know my kids might be ready, or they might not be ready, but let me prepare my business to either transition it to my kids in 3 to 5 years or sell it in 3 to 5 years. Either way, but if you do that for 3 to 5 years, those issues I just talked about, don't say they won't happen, but they're way less likely to happen.
Yeah. Let's end on this. What happens if I go to prepare my business to sell, but we never do? What's the downside of having a business?
This is what I said. The worst thing that's going to happen is if you prepare your business for sale and it doesn't sell, you probably have a great management team. You have great processes. You don't have to spend as much time in it, and it's probably making more money. So you get more cash and you have less headaches and you get more time off.
Oh, that sucks. None of those three things are
worst case. So, but that's why when I work with clients, they said, tell you, and they're 3 to 5 years out, we're creating a transferable business. Worst case is if you never sell, you're going to be more profitable and you're not going to have to spend as much time in this thing.
Love it.
And some people, they prepare their business for sale and they get all those things in place and they go, you know what, if this is how easy it is to run it,
why would I sell it?
Because I'm getting the cash.
Yeah. That's what I find more often than not, even when people start with me and say, hey, we might be wanting to sell in the future. But once the systems are in place and it's kind of fun, and you realize I golf a lot, or as one of my clients said, I do as much tennis as I want now. My problem is my buddies don't have as much time as me.
I have 2 clients, one that I'm in the process of selling next month, and his next door neighbor in his golf partner goes, I'm getting pissed because Bobby is always golfing and he's playing these extra turns, and I can only play with him like on a third of them because I'm too busy with work because everything comes through me. Bobby's done a great job. He doesn't have to do anything.
Because he's already done
he's pulled himself out of it and he has a team in place.
Oh, so he still owns the business. He hasn't sold it.
He's about to sell it. He's going to sell it in about all things willing, in about 35 days.
Nice.
But his next door neighbor, is like, I gave him his valuation. I said, your business, and I'll pick another round number. Your business is worth 10.
Yeah.
I said, but you're only going to see about 2.5 to 3 million at close. I said, you're going to have to get the rest over the next 5 years. And he was like, why? And I said, because you're in charge of sales, you're in charge of client delivery, you own all the client relationships, and you have 2 clients that are worth like 40% of your revenue. They're going to make sure you stay and make sure those clients stay, and that the $1 million of earnings that you have each year is $1 million, at least for the next 5 years before they give you the rest of it.
Right.
I said, so you will never be like Bobby.
Well, you will. It's just going to take a while.
It's going to take you longer. Or you can spend the next 3 to 5 years doing it and get more money in total value and get it all at close. And by the way, instead of making $1 million a year, you might be getting up to $1.25 million, $1.5 million. So your business be worth more at that time. So it's not like he's hurting. He's working hard, but he's making a lot of money.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like he's having that much trouble. He's still golfing a third of.
He's just annoyed that to make a lot of money, he's got to work really hard, and his next door neighbor, golf buddy, makes as much money or more and doesn't work hard at all.
Yeah. It's the competitive nature of what we do.
Yes.
Greg, this has been great. I love having you on the show because just you tell the stories you tell and the way you tell them are so easy to understand. So I appreciate that. If somebody wants to find you, if somebody wants to know more or ask you questions, how do we find you in this big world?
Sure. A couple ways. One is you can email me at gdesimone@beaconequityadvisors.com, or just go to the beaconequityadvisors.com website. You'll see my picture there and you can link onto it. And if you go there, there's a book that I referenced called Think Like a Buyer. Has all the different potholes or things that increase or decrease the value based on whether they're present.
Oh, that's where the 40 list is in there?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's not written as a list. It's more like I tell stories. The book's written in stories. My business partner wrote it.
Sure.
But it tells you all the things that could go wrong going into a sale. And it's like, again, the phrase is think like a buyer. We're positioning every risk as, why is the buyer concerned about this? Or why will the buyer pay more if that's not present?
Okay.
So which goes back to making your business buyable, not preparing for a sale. Anyone can sell the business, but if you want to get the most value, you want to make it buyable. And this book, Think Like a Buyer, takes all those issues and the perspective of a buyer and why it's a concern to them and what you can do to improve it.
Perfect. Okay, so we get you at G DeSimone. Obviously, it's going to G DeSimone at Beacon Equity Advisors .com, or I'll have show notes, or somebody can download that book from or order the book from the site.
From the website. Yep.
Yeah, excellent. Well, Greg, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, and just if you download the request for the book, just mention me, we'll send it to you.
Perfect. All right, Greg. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. You know, we have had you here before. So people listening, if you liked what Greg had to say and you want to hear his past episodes, go look for his past episodes here on Profit Tool Belt. I think you've also been on cabinetmakerprofitsystem.com. Yes. Interestingly, you have an ownership piece in a cabinet shop. We didn't even touch on that today. No. So Greg certainly understands the trades. And if I remember right, you grew up at a trades dinner table. Didn't your family?
We were in the building supplies. So we were distributed to lumber yards.
There you go. So you understand, you know, not only the day-to-day, but the nuances and the little things that impact this, as well as how people are using the product.
Correct.
Yeah, love it. All right, Greg, thanks very much for being on the show. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.